please welcome our next guest, Timotheus Höttges from Deutsche Telekom.
Yeah, dear Prime Minister, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a big pleasure for me being here in Poland, back in Poland, as Deutsche Telekom. And as you know, we have a big operation here on the ground in Poland, and we are very committed. I'm even more pleased to be in Krakow, because I think Krakow is a wonderful town. I like the Alchemia bar, I like Kroke as a super band, and I like your Tatanka, whatever you know that is, you know. So it is a big pleasure here. The message which I like to convey as the CEO of Deutsche Telekom, with investing 30 billion euros on an annual basis, is that we're going to be one of the first countries where we're going to deploy a 5G network technology is going to be Poland. And the second message which I want to convey today is that I invite you, everybody of you, to be part of this story. Because 5G only lives if we are jointly developing all the different use cases around this new technology which is coming. So now, what is our position here in Poland? And apart from T-Mobile, which you probably know, the big operation, of history of ERA, now being rebranded in Group's portfolio, is one of, let's say, of our, countries, most important countries in the European landscape. We cover 12 countries in Europe with own networks, and Poland is the third biggest market which we're having in this portfolio. And so it is very important for us to be leading in this environment. So our commitment is, on the one side, to invest into the technology and into the network. And our second thing is to go and even work on these high skills which we found here from a technology base. For this purpose, we have built an accelerator here, which is called Hubraum. And just, Hubraum is enabling young companies, good entrepreneurs, ideas into the total technology equipment of Deutsche Telekom. And what we are offering already throughout this year is working on the Narrowband Iot applications and the technology around that one, which is, let's say, the part for the Internet of Things, which you do, which is a big, business opportunity. DT Capital Partners, another thing, which is our venture capital arm. Deutsche Telekom has a venture capital arm based in Hamburg, based in Central Road in the Valley, and based in Tel Aviv, with 700 million venture capital. And we are inviting you to pitch for this venture capital arm as well. And then we have the innovation labs. We have labs here, but we even have labs across the globe where we are, let's say, trying to evolve new technologies going forward. We have already a lot of, let's say, partners here, but, it should be more. And I think, Poland, Krakow is a very good hub for us to develop these ideas within the ecosystem. That said, why is 5G so important? Some of you might say, oh, we had 2G, we had 3G, we had 4G, and now 5G, it's just another coverage, and it's just faster. This is not the case. 5G requires a totally new architecture of the mobile network which we are building. And it's going to be, let's say, a big undertaking, because we are enabling up to 50 billion devices being connected over the infrastructures of telecommunication operators in 2020. But not every application, not every service requires the same infrastructure, requires the same technical parameters. But 5G is enabling different quality of services, is enabling different guaranteed quality classes to the specific industry needs. And I wanted to show you some of these business cases, just illustrative. The one thing is latency. Latency is the question, how fast is some device being connected via mobile site into the backbone infrastructure, to the cloud and the internet, going to another place and coming back. This latency today in our infrastructures is around 40 to 50 milliseconds. But if we would have autonomous driving in the future, this 40 to 50 milliseconds would not be sufficient to organize autonomous driving. Maybe to illustrate that, you see that with a car in a 60 milliseconds latency, it gets the information in corporate driving that something is happening around the corner, and it takes 1.4 meters to react. The limitation of this infrastructure is simply that light speed in the infrastructure is not sufficient. So what we have to do to generate these low latencies is we have to build the cloud into the mobile sites. The cloud into the mobile sites. So you see, this requires another infrastructure than just the antennas with the radios on top of it. Another business case which I like to show is the so-called Narrowband Iot. Everything gets connected. Think about freight, logistic companies in the world, containers who are carried around the world. The moment they're leaving the legacy of Poland or Europe, how are they connected into the infrastructure? How do you get for the different use cases the information what's going on? And this is something that we have to enable global connectivity, global machine-to-machine services, which you in your vertical applications could administrate at any time. Another practical example which I like to show you is the asset tracking which we already have in the market. And what you can see on this slide is you see that there is a device which you put into every, let's say, fresh food, into vegetables, into flowers, into where you want to understand what happened carrying the product from A to B to C to D. And sometimes you do not know why your favorite oysters are not, that fresh as you expected. And what you could see here is that we are tracking the humidity, the temperature, we could shattering, everything what is interesting could be scanned through a journey. You get a dashboard which is giving you exactly what has happened, whether this kind of frozen or guaranteed temperature was on the entire way. And at the end of the day, you could then talk to your suppliers and know exactly why the quality of a product, why the quality of a service was not the way as it was promised. You know who is accountable for the different quality classes what you have. And the next thing which I like to show is Hamburg, a case which we are deploying these days with so-called Narrowband Iot. Think about the cities and the situation of modern societies. Most of the time in the cities, we are spending our time by looking for a parking lot, which is almost on an average 5 kilometers by looking for a parking lot. And it takes 20% of the entire traffic intercity in the cities for looking for a parking lot. With the digitalization, with the Internet of Things, we have new applications, new solutions which we could easily deploy. This here is a mobile device. Now, this mobile site is built into every parking lot in Hamburg these days. 11,000 parking lots. It is a very 8-watt energy consumption, very low. It gives not 3 signals by information, it gives more than 16 signals by signal. So it always is connected to the infrastructure. It is buried in the ground, and the moment a car is passing on the slot, it tells the navigation system, it tells your app, this parking lot is booked. The moment you leave, it's open, free, and empty, and gives the information to the navigation system. Here is a parking lot which you could use for getting a free parking. It helps on top of that for the parking fees, because the parking fees today are quite expensive. So in the future, it is going to be handled by the app. Your car is passing by, the app registered who is on this spot, and it gets automatically billed over your mobile bill or about a digital payment service easily than compared to the total situation. This network is not requiring any low latency. This network just needs a signal only in the situation where somebody is coming to the parking slot or leaving the parking lot. So a totally different quality of classes what we have. These are only 4 use cases. And I can tell you we can think about hundreds of additional use cases for this Internet of Things. And what we need is one size fits all. Is not applying to the infrastructure in the future. This was the past. The future is a tailored mobile infrastructure. A tailored mobile infrastructure. And we as a carrier, we have to make sure that this tailored infrastructure is taking place. What are the challenges to make this happen? What you see here is we need global connectivity. We need reliability. You might have health systems where you need a quality, a guaranteed quality, so not a best effort network. You need security features in this network, that nobody interfering into a machine-to-machine communication. You need administration for billions of devices. Who is handling all the devices for big corporates and big companies? You need sometimes very low energy consumption because you do not have a power supply. You need deep indoor penetration, so you need more signals than you have today. You need better coverage in certain areas, and you need densification or provisioning opportunities if you monetize these business models. All of this is going to be deployed in the devices and in the software which is behind this Internet of Service. Now, how could we build this network? And just to illustrate it, if we put this into the mobile networks which we have today, it would not work. The complexity of these requirements, we are not able to build that into one infrastructure as we have it today. So now we can say, okay, we build an autonomous network, we build a narrowband network, we build a network for emails and a network for voice. Very easily, it would be totally inefficient. So the only way of doing it is by a sliced infrastructure, which is an SDN network, which is a software-steered infrastructure. So we virtualize the physical network, and in this, we administrate the different quality of classes which are required from the industries. To sum it up, the 5G network is about 3 things which are very relevant. What kind of latency do we need, and how do we drive down the latency that real-time applications are possible? Second, how close is the compute power to the infrastructure, and how big is the compute power to administrate that? Do we need low-energy chipsets or high-energy chipsets? Doesn't it matter? And the third one is bandwidth. To give an impression, and that is maybe even my approach towards the political leaders is, today we are using 1% of the spectrum which we will need for a good 5G deployment in the future. And we heard that in the former presentation, I only saw that slide, that today we are using a fraction of the spectrum which we might need in the future. We need multi-band approaches for that one, because otherwise we would not be able to transfer all these data volumes over our infrastructure. So what needs to be done? What can we do as T-Mobile, as Deutsche Telekom? What can you do as entrepreneurs? And what should the society and the political leaders consider to make this big opportunity of the Internet of Things reality? What we will do is driving the 5G standardization. 5G services should work everywhere. It cannot be that due to different frequency usage or other things at the border, suddenly the Internet of Things service is not working anymore. We will provide open APIs. that it's for the vertical solutions, for the entrepreneurs, very easy to connect their ideas, their solution business into our infrastructure. We will build an ecosystem which is not just a network in the future. We will offer you a solution which is based on network. We will even help you on sensors and actors, as we're doing today. We will work on security features in this part, so software becomes an incremental part of network. And we will even offer cloud solutions which are helping you that you are able to administrate all these devices at a central focus point. Authentication, billing, quality of services is a must-have. Because some of you might look for real-time solutions, some others are looking for narrowband solutions on the other side. And the last thing, which is quite challenging for us at that point in time, is how is the amortization of this new infrastructure looks like? How could we get the money back which we are going to invest? And therefore, I can tell you, by selling a machine-to-machine card, which is generating a cent per day, we will not be able to amortize that. So we have to think about more a solution-driven business than rather a classical SIM card and connectivity sale. What can you do? If I would ask you, what kind of quality of service of our network you are requiring for your service, if I ask the SMBs of this world and even the large corporates what kind of infrastructure they need for their Internet of Things, Industry 4.0 solutions, the answer is, in most of the cases, I don't know. Because we are used to get a best effort network where we are connected. So people don't think about the specific needs for a health service, for a car service, for a parking and city service. So you have to think about what kind of infrastructure of quality you are requiring. The second thing is Internet of Things, IoT, doesn't mean island of things. Especially established companies, they tend to say, data is mine. I control the entire vertical silo. I'm not sharing. This is nothing I'm opening up. So the Internet of Things is not an island of things. Get connected to the vertical industries. It's the first chance which we have in history that we are not differentiating in the piece where we're operating, but by getting the entire vertical value chain with data connectivity in a new way and in new. This is creating productivity. This is creating transparency. But you have to open up for that. If you're not sharing your data, it is not going to work. Define the partners which you need for that one, because it is more if you combine it. So sharing data is, I think, a must-do in this ecosystem. It doesn't make sense for a city to just, build that if they're not connecting this data to the navigation kits of the car manufacturers. And the last thing is my approach towards society and towards politicians. We don't have always our destiny in our hand in this very highly regulated industries. What we urgently need is spectrum availability. Spectrum is our right to broadcast. Without spectrum, it's not going to work. Impossible. So therefore, we need to have multiple spectrum which is coming to the market. And I doubt that it's a good idea to rent this spectrum. Because if you rent a flat, you treat it differently than you own the flat. This is one of the big advantages the US market has of today, that you can buy spectrum and use it then as a trading good, but even from an efficiency perspective in a different way. You own it forever. The second thing is a new kind of competition law. This over-regulation in our industry is not going to work. And we had this long debate about the net neutrality. I think we found finally a good solution for Europe. So we have a standard solution on that one. But we need, even on the regulatory side, another approach. Because it's already hard for us today to earn our capital costs. And if this industry is only focusing from political leaders on the lowest price, the consequence is that we are maybe not in the position to invest sufficiently. And Europe has already today an investment gap of 700 billion in fixed and mobile already today compared to other nations and continents. And the last thing is partnerships to speed up the network deployment. The future ecosystem is not going to work that there will be only 1 or 2 or 3 players. We will even see ecosystems where we are going to cooperate, because it might be that in very local and rural areas, it's not going to be possible to just, deploy 3 networks in parallel. We have in these areas really to cooperate closely together, because from an efficiency perspective, it would not make sense to build 3 networks. And what we have to do as well, we still have in a lot of areas, we have holes in the infrastructure, we have gaps where our network is not working sufficiently. 5G is not one size fits all. 5G is a big opportunity to enable industry in a new way. It is not working from the telco operators alone. We are just building the infrastructure. You have to build the ecosystem for the vertical solutions. But this is definitely the second half of the digitalization. And Europe has lost the first part of the digitalization to US, to the big internet companies in the consumer space. This is now the game of the internet of the business, and this is the second half of the term. And therefore, we should not lose this game as well. So let's work together, we, you, and society, to make it a success. Thank you very much.